Great. Thank you so much for the introduction. So like Magdalena says, I'm Dominique Green. I'm the training lead for DCC. In addition to running training consultancies and DMP online, we also participate in European projects. And one of them I lead our participation in, and that's Skills for EOSC. And I will give you a bit of overview about the project, which is about creating a training ecosystem for open science and fair data. So in Skills for EOS, we have 44 partners from different universities and thematic international organizations across 18 countries. Our coordinators are from Consortium GAR in Italy. The project really consists of what they call the key doers in open science and in their respective countries, regions, or domains. And the project is funded by the European Union and the UK Research and Innovation. And the project lasts for 3 years and it will end next year in August. So as I'm talking about Skills for EOS, there's some key concepts that'll pop up quite a lot. And our project is really centered around these various concepts within the project. So for instance, we propose a fair by design methodology for open science teaching and learning. We want to coordinate a network of competence centers on open science and fair data to really enable key competencies for an EOS skilled European workforce. I'll also talk about the minimum viable skill sets where we map career profiles related to open science, and then we map or define a minimum viable skill set for each of them. We'll also, we develop training for trainers so that they could deliver trainings to upskill researchers and other open science practitioners. And then we also develop some curriculum and learning paths for open science. All of these I'll touch on as I go through this presentation. So the core objective of Skills for EOS is to advance open science skills by unifying the current training landscape into a common and trusted pan-European ecosystem. And the project really aims to close 3 gaps that are identified in the EOS strategic research and innovation agenda. And basically in relation to open science competences. So we really want to touch on a lack of open science and data expertise, a lack of a clear definition of data professional profiles and their corresponding career paths, and also a fragmentation in training resources. So our main objective for the project is based on this strategic research and innovation agenda. If we look at it a bit more closely, we can see how Skills for EOS works to address the agenda and its priorities. So for the strategic research and innovation agenda, the overall purpose is really to define the general framework for future research and innovation activities in relation to EOSC. And some of those priorities that were defined prior to Skills for EOS. And I say that way because our work is built on the 2021 version of the agenda. There is a current version of the report that was just updated last December. But anyway, the key priorities of the 2021 version of the report was to really develop the next generation of open science and data professionals, bridge this education gap by coordinating and aligning curriculum for students and researchers, building a trusted and long-lasting knowledge hub of learning materials, and influencing national open science policy for skills. And Skills for EOS has a lot of different contribution to these priorities in a lot of different ways. So again, we are addressing 3 skills-related gaps. That's the lack of open science and data expertise, a lack of clearly defined data professional profiles and their subsequent career paths, and also the fragmentation in training resources. So really, through these mechanisms, we're trying to leverage this concept of competence centers, which I'll touch on in the next couple of slides. We want to leverage this concept to really pool existing competences in different institutions and research infrastructures or e-infrastructures, and to really set out a strategy to train trainers who will act as like multipliers to provide lifelong training locally. On the profiles, we are and have mapped existing professional profiles by defining that minimum viable skill set that I touched on very briefly in the concepts for each of those profiles. Using those profiles to harmonize curriculum and competence accreditation mechanisms, we can engage with different research performing organizations, we can engage with funders, and also national training programs to really ensure that we have some recognition of the training, of the skill sets, and hopefully adoption of them. And then finally, to address the fragmentation in training, we've provided a methodology for Fair by Design, which kind of encompasses this practical information on how to use resources and promote the creation of national training catalogs and some interoperability with the EOS platform. So our overarching objective is really pursued through the coordination of established national and regional activities. And a real key channel to reach this objective is through the Competence Center. And we really regard this as like the cornerstone of a sustainable strategy towards normalizing open science skills. So the Skills for EOS Competence Center Network is a coordinated network of competence centers across Europe that provides key competencies to enable the practice of open science and EOS. And when I guess when we describe the competence centers, they're really seen as centers of gravity for open science and different EOS activities within the respective countries. The competence centers can either be established national initiatives like the ICDI or the Italian Computing and Data Infrastructure in Italy. It could also be initiatives that's under establishment. That's like the case in a number of countries across Europe, like Austria, Bulgaria, and some of the Southeast European countries. Or the competence centers can be organizations that have leading contributions or mandated contributions to open science activities nationally. And this could be like a national cloud provider, national research and education networks, or different core universities like TU Delft in the Netherlands. And I know TU Delft had an earlier presentation. And they're also involved in the project. So overall, the Competence Center Network is just really dedicated to developing and sharing expertise in open science and FAIR and different EOS related fields. And then looking, I guess, a bit lower. So you have the network. And then when you talk about what the Competence Center as one part, what that does, the Skills for EOS Competence Center is to serve as a hub for knowledge and resources for either the country, the region, or the domain. So a specific area of expertise that you're looking at. And the main goal of that is to improve overall competency in an area that's covered by Skills for EOS. So I'll talk about some of those areas in a bit. It could be reaching universities, reaching policymakers, for instance. So the Skills for EOS Competence Center would include a team of experts who have in-depth knowledge and experience in the field for open science, etc. They're really responsible for conducting research, providing some training and education, and advising other people within the organization of best practices and strategies. They can also help to develop tools, maintain a repository of information, and other resources that might be necessary. Um, Essentially, they are a point of reference for any of the key competences necessary to enable open science. And overall, they really play a key role in fostering this culture of continuous learning and improvement within the center. I will also point out that the competence centers may be built by involving local members that are not a part of the project consortium. So there are ways, for instance, if someone here is interested in becoming a part of the project via the Competence Center network, that's definitely possible. It's not limited to the partners within the project. If you are interested, I will link the project coordinator's email at the end of the presentation. And I've also linked here the link to the Competence Center network on the website. Okay, so I'm gonna warn you now, like not to be overwhelmed with this chart, this figure here. It's just here to help me show you what the structure of the project is and how I discuss it, how we all discuss it really. Um, our overall goal is focused on upskilling researchers in open science and related skills. And I apologize in advance because you're probably going to hear me say open science and related skills lots and lots of times, but that's what the project is about. So the project is divided into sections that kind of follow these three main themes. There's one work package that's focused on mapping and methodology that works to define the roles and the skills that we're looking at, setting a methodology for fair by design and quality assurance. And those inform the other work packages. So we have training work package that are focused on doing the actual upskilling. And then we have the engagement work package that is responsible for engagement and sharing the news that these resources are available. We at DCC have involvement in all parts of the project, but I'll touch on work package 2 because that's the one that DCC leads. That's under mapping and methodology. And again, this work package does inform the rest of the work packages. And some of those key goals, again, are to map the career profiles related to open science, defining that minimum viable skill set that I'm going to touch on in the next slide, and implementing this fair by design methodology for learning materials. So the minimum viable skill sets are really a key output of the project because a lot of subsequent work is built on it. And a minimum viable skill set profile, or an MVS, as I'll say after this, it identifies essential open science skills and competencies that's required for different open science practitioners. To develop the MVS, they draw on established competence frameworks and resources to or that have already defined the open science mission, activities, or outcomes expected of relevant roles. So we've defined the profiles for the EOS actor, and these roles have been identified by the EOS working group on skills and training. And from there, we refined those parts of the profile based on recent outputs from like the OECD, the National Platform on Open Science that came from the Netherlands, and then also the Fair Project. So the career profiles identify for each role, we identify its mission and related to fair and open science, and the main tasks and outputs that are typically expected of the role, but also the competences and the proficiency levels needed to do that job. And then we also include different disciplinary variations as needed. Another point that I want to make about this is that the MVS profiles are compatible with different skills ontologies like ESCO, which is the classification of European skills, competences, and occupations. ESCO is a part of the Europe 2020 strategy. It's also compatible with term fulfilled skills. And that project was created to formalize a terminology that's describing competencies, skills, and knowledge associated with making and keeping data fair. And I mention this because it's really helpful for us, because one of its use cases is really to facilitate the creation and assessment of curricula, and is of use for trainers who teach fair data skills. And it certainly comes in handy for this project. So we made sure that the working skills for EOS and the MVS profiles are in line with other skills frameworks and ontologies, so that the work is compatible with other projects and frameworks. It's not something that's standalone or is creating something new. It's about bringing all of those together and summarizing all those open science essentials into one place. So the MVS does provide, like I said, like a set of terms that describe the open science skills scope for the role. The terms are keywords that summarize those essential skills and competences needed to deal with 5 dimensions of open science. This can be visualized as a wheel showing the extent to which the role deals with each dimension. So on this is very simple. I won't take too much time on this, but these dimensions are domain, technology, leadership, interpersonal, and communication. And it gives just a bit of a high level representation of an MVS as a skills wheel. And these dimensions, again, are something that we, didn't develop on our own. There's something that was derived from the Horizon Europe guidance on open science. And if you look at it, you can see that the depth of shading on each dimension, there's depths of shading, and on each profile, that depth of shading will be different based on the distribution of the key terms within the MVS based on the terms with fair skills. And it also includes a glossary of science community engagement skills. So, like I said, I just include this to offer some insight into the work and some of the thought that has gone into the development of the MVS profiles, and also the scope of the competencies that the MVS includes. So it's not only the technical skills, it also includes the transferable soft skills, and all of these skills that might be needed for that professional role. So we are using the profiles as an aid to develop new curricula, career paths, and courses within the project. So it is used as guidance to articulate some of those key skills needed to be addressed within the curricula and the learning paths and some of the other materials. And then the last point is that we have developed like a fairly simple MVS profile to articulate the skills and competencies that enable the researchers, the professionals, and the stakeholders to fulfill different open science expectations from EOSC. And this format that has been developed is adaptable to different organizational and domain contexts. So it doesn't have to be like, a one size fits all approach to identifying these skills and competencies. Certainly because a lot of the work has been done under co-creation, where we talked to a lot of practitioners and partners within the project, which really highlights the adaptability of the profiles. Um, so about a year ago, we published a catalog of the MVS profiles, and these are currently publicly available on Zenodo. I put the link in the slides. If you do take a look at it, and there's some things that you'd like to comment on, we are definitely open to hearing feedback about the profiles. You're most certainly welcome to get in touch with us. We're more than welcome to hear about it. So far we've developed profiles for data stewards, and I'll show you in a couple of slides how that profile looks. We've adapted profiles for legal experts, knowledge brokers, different types of students and researchers at different phases in their career. We've also looked at policymakers and research infrastructure professionals. Currently within the work packages that are working on training for different groups, we have different profiles in development for a scholarly communication specialist, a data librarian or professional, and a digital collections curator. We have another version of the catalog that we'll release next year to include these roles in progress, but we are considering including additional profiles, including one for data analyst, data scientist, research software engineer, etc. If you are in a role like this and are interested in supporting the development of an MVS profile, do be in touch. We really encourage outside or external stakeholders to participate in the development in these profiles. And I also do want to say that the roles that we have chosen to highlight within the catalog weren't randomly selected. So the main reference for creating these profiles for these roles were based on a report on digital skills for fair and open science. That's also linked in the slides as well at the very bottom. I don't know if you can see. But so again, a lot of the work that we have done is to build on other work that has happened within EOS and using different references and resources and summarizing what's been put out in other reports. So another really key output of the project is this FAIR by Design methodology. And we use this FAIR by Design learning methodology to develop learning materials within the project. And this methodology is based on a backward instructional process. And backward instructional design is basically about prioritizing learning outcomes so that when the training designer starts the process of developing materials, they start with the outcomes of learning materials before content, for instance, like other traditional methods of designing materials do. So basically you start with the goals first. And then in this methodology, the process is then extended with additional activities that's focusing on the implementation of the FAIR guiding principles. And the actual output for this is linked within the slides. And it does offer, what I really like about it is that it offers a discussion of the important points of implementing the methodology. So it includes stuff like the metadata schema, interoperability, and publication in relevant repositories. Right now, we're currently looking at a way to, I guess, to have a simplified version of the methodology. Right now, it does also include a checklist in it, but it's a um, really comprehensive guide on the why we use the Fair by Design methodology, as well as um, the actual methodology. We're working now on providing a simplified checklist for that, and I'm sure that'll be available on Zenodo relatively soon. All of the key outputs of the project follows a co-creation process. So the work we do in Skills for EOS is not just an internal piece of work that we upload on Zenodo and hope that people will engage with it. The co-creation process really happens at two levels: the consortium level and the community level. So for instance, when the first version of the MVS profiles were being developed, we worked with all the partners within the project to co-develop the profile. So those work packages that were handling the training for the respective EOS actors were invited to participate in the development of the profile. And after that, we collaborated with some external groups seeking a lot of comment and suggestions to the profiles while they were in the draft stages. So nearly all of the project outputs are uploaded to Zenodo. For a lot of them, we have surveys and questionnaires attached to them to collect feedback. And most often when we get those feedback, the feedback is pretty quickly implemented into the output. So we do use the feedback that we get, which is really very helpful, and it just ensures that the work is not just done by Skills for EOS, but it has a lot of engagement from internal and external stakeholders. We also do a lot of consortium and community level webinars, and we've hosted a different events to enable and foster this discussion. For instance, last year we presented at the Open Science Fair. We presented at the Research Data Alliance plenaries, and we also partner with a lot of different other EOS projects to continue to foster collaboration. So in Skills for EOS, we want to go from identifying the essential skills and the MVS profiles and developing learning materials that we can use. And all of the learning materials are defined according to the Fair by Design methodology. And those are subsequently used in training. In the next few slides, I'm going to show you an example of this via the Data Steward MVS profile. And I chose this one to show you because it was probably the one that's most relevant to what a lot of people in the audience might be doing in their work. But if wrong on that, we do have the catalog where you can take a look at some of the other profiles as well. So the Data Steward MVS describes the expertise that's needed to maximize the potential value of digital research objects for the community and the public. And it also takes into consideration respecting the rights and the interests of other stakeholders involved, like the data subjects, researchers, organizations, different communities affected, the funders, the scientific journals, etc. And the MVS for data stewards also encompass a lot of different data professional roles that's commonly associated with data stewardship. So it recognizes that there's a lot of different alternative job titles that might be associated with data stewardship activities, like a data curator, like a data librarian or a data manager, or even an RDM coordinator. And this particular MVS includes two varieties of a data steward, and that's the coordinator and the embedded roles. And these kind of represent two ends of a spectrum, with the coordinator describing a role that is providing support across a lot of different domains and units within an entire organization, like the research data management coordinator. And then at the other end of the spectrum, we have embedded, which describes a role that's more closely situated next to a research team, and it's a bit more domain specific, like an earth sciences data manager, for instance. We also recognize that these roles can overlap and is often influenced by, availability of resources, different disciplinary and organizational cultures, for instance. Um, but essentially, the data stewardship expertise is distributed across the team that draws on in-house capabilities and any external services that might be provided to the organization, like a university, for instance. So under the data steward profile, there are 12 high-level descriptive statements to represent the essential skills and competencies. Some of these include knowledge of open science practice, knowledge about brokering, research data management, monitoring open and fair methods. And then you can also see there's some soft skills there as well, like creativity and critical thinking, curiosity and openness, and a willingness to learn. So based on that data steward profile, we've begun drafting a training curriculum for data stewards. And what's on screen here is actually an excerpt from that curriculum that we've started drafting. Just recently, quite a few of the partners got to flesh out the draft of the curriculum in Delft, so we got a chance to work together, like in person, to flesh out what this training curriculum would look like. And the curriculum is based on a high-level MVS and addresses some of those key essential skills that are outlined in the MVS for data stewards. And because all of our work is underpinned by co-creation, we have people who help draft the MVS profile to also develop the curriculum. So there's kind of like this shared responsibility for all of the outputs. And you can see here that I've shared the learning objectives and learning outcomes for some of it. I'll say as well that this is not all parts of the curriculum. This is just a piece of it that I could fit on the screen. So you can see here that the work really does follow the FAIR by Design methodology and this backward instructional design. So we focus on the outcomes and the objectives first before anything else. And that is all based on what's been developed in the MVS profile. So in addition to the data steward profiles and the subsequent learning paths and training curricula for data stewards, the project is designing and developing different paths for different targets, most of which are based on the MVS profiles that the list of which I showed you earlier, but it also targets different areas. So for instance, we are targeting science for policy. We are really dedicated to evidence-informed decision-making for policymaker. So based on the profiles for honest brokers and civil servants and policymakers, we are creating training materials and developing some workshops that aid in enabling researchers to communicate with these groups to inform policy decisions based on research. While also targeting institutions and research infrastructures and thematic communities. And also targeting professional networks from the data steward profile. Another work package that DCC had quite a lot of involvement in was to develop a data steward network kit. And that work package lead now is helping different groups in different countries to start those networks. So it is really kind of like this holistic way of ensuring that researchers and data stewards and other open science practitioners really have access to lifelong training and also resources and networks as well. I'm gonna just keep on with the time. I just have a few more slides left. So after what I attempted to show you in the presentation is simply how the project moves from mapping and methodology to how we do the upskilling. So we move from mapping and methodology to upskilling and training trainers. So this slide here is just to show you what I've talked about graphically. So we start with this competency definition via a minimum viable skill set. Learning materials are developed for training programs for trainers. So we develop the content for trainers via the Fair by Design methodology, ensuring that all of the outputs from Skills for EOS are fair from the beginning. Even the MVS profiles, we've worked to ensure that those are fair by design as well. We are starting the trainer programs this year. So, for instance, our work to reach the civil servants and policymakers, we're developing the first round of trainings for the trainers this year. And by equipping the trainers with the content and this training on how to reach out to policymakers and stuff, allows us to also increase their competency so that they can in turn upskill the different target areas of the project. We call them master trainers because we typically have one or two per country or per partner. And essentially, once they're trained from the project, they go out and start to train their respective communities and areas with the content and the materials that have been developed within Skills for EOSC. So what does the rest of the project look like? Like I mentioned, we end the project next August 2025. So this is really our areas of focus. We're focused on delivering the trainer activities starting this year. We plan to strengthen the Competence Center network. It's going to be publicly launched June 25th. We also want to ensure that we continuously engage with other EOS projects on these activities. We have quite a lot of collaboration with different projects. At the moment, we're working with Fair Impact, the Pattern Project, for instance. We also want to ensure that there is sustainability, and hopefully the success of the project will be sustained via the Competence Center network. And finally, we want to make sure that people are aware of the results of Skills for EOS. So we do a lot of engagement. We take time to talk a lot about Skills for EOS, and we ask for as much collaboration with as many interested parties as we can. And we really hope to do this through to the end of the project. I thank you for taking the time to listen. I've linked here some of the outputs of the project here if you're interested in taking a look at it. Even if you are a designer of trainings, you can take a look at the Fair by Design methodology, or if you're interested in looking at some of the other MVS profiles, those are also linked there as well.
Thank you, Dominique, and thank you for such an insightful talk into the skills for EOSC. Very interesting. I can't see really any questions in the chat, but I'll invite now the room. Feel free to unmute yourself or raise a hand if you wish to ask Dominique anything or you have any further comment. I'm just looking through the chat to see. Can't see anything, and I'll just double check the share document as well, just to make sure I'm not missing out on anything. No, I can't see any questions. I think people need to process everything you shared. It's been so insightful. Oh, Zaid has a question. Would you like to unmute yourself if you can speak?
Sure. Thank you so much for this nice presentation. I do have a question regarding training for data stewards. As we can see, there's a lot of variables going on there. For, I think, the last year or so, there was a course given at Wynn University. Are you familiar with that?
I am. I haven't been on the course, but I am aware of it.
Do you think that moving forward, this would become the standard, what's offered by EOSC, or certification for data stewards will be centralized elsewhere?
Oh, I don't know. I'm wondering. I think there's a focus on it because the definition of what a data steward is, or what they do, has not been clear. And I think that's why we're seeing those push towards having some formalized trainings and some that come with certifications. And certainly for our trainers, there will be some certifications as well. I don't know if it's going to be the norm. Certainly, it'll be a norm to recognize what the career paths are for those people that are in that type of work. So, if the certification is going to be the norm, I'm not sure. But having a recognized career path, I think that's what they would like.
Okay, thank you so much, Dominique.
Thank you for the question and for the link.
Thank you, Ziad. So I'll let a few more minutes just to see, or a few more moments at least, if people have some more questions before we take a little break. Thank you to whoever is copying and pasting the link into the notes as well. The notes are going to be shared after the meeting as well, and feel free to log into them.
Yeah, I recognize it was a lot of information, and I had to pare back my slides a bit. So if there are any questions or any thoughts about skills for EOS after, I'm more than happy to receive emails about it. So my emails are open.
Thank you, Dominique. It's all working fine, so I'll just mute myself now.